Hey there, story mentors, potential story mentors, and story mentees. My name is Emily Paxman. I have, in some capacity or another, been involved with Story Mentors since its inception. And I just want to share a little bit about what my experience with the program was like and why I love it so much and why I'm so excited that we're bringing it back this year. Now, when I say that I've been involved with it, in some capacity over its entire run, I was not initially involved behind the scenes. I was actually a mentee in the very first year that Story Mentors ran. The program was ran a little bit differently back then, but I was really excited about it because it seemed like a really, really great opportunity to kind of help me try to get over the edge of where I was at in my writing career at the time. I'd written a number of books, I'd queried agents, and I just hadn't quite managed to make things happen. So I sent in an application. I described the book that I was writing and what I was hoping to get out of a mentorship and kind of where I was at in the publishing process. And I got paired with a wonderful mentor that year, and I am so grateful. Her name was Jamie Thieler. And Jamie was just kind of exactly what I needed. Now, things were a little bit more loosey-goosey then. We kind of defined things based on what we thought should happen. And when Jamie came on, I was just finishing up edits for a novel that I wanted to query called Death on the Caldera. It was a fantasy murder mystery. It still is a fantasy murder mystery. More on where this is going coming up. And Jamie was really excited about that. She was excited to read this book and to be involved with it. And as I was getting ready to query and everything, I sent her my query letter. She kind of was like, oh, I think that works. And so I went ahead and I started sending it out. And the pitch for this book is that it is Murder on the Orient Express with Witches. And I was really excited about that pitch. Jamie was excited about that pitch. Pretty much everyone I told it to, they were like, oh, that's going to get a lot of requests. That's going to do really well in the query trenches. And I was like, yeah, it is. And I wrote the query letter up and Jamie was like, that's going to do really well in the query trenches. And I went, yeah, it is. And then I started sending it out and it didn't do so well in the query trenches. And I can remember kind of coming back to the drawing board and going, okay, what do I think the problem is? And I concluded pretty quickly it probably wasn't my query letter. Which means that unfortunately the problem was probably the book. And so I talked to Jamie and I asked her to read the beginning of my book. And she was excited to do that. And she started reading it and she generally had very positive things to say. But I remember that she made a comment where she compared the beginning of my book to a particular other book that it reminded her of. And if that had been what I was going for, that would have been a really good compliment. But it wasn't. And that was the problem. And I can remember going, oh, sort of when I realized that. And Jamie had a lot of really good notes. But the thing that stuck with me is that I realized I wasn't setting my reader up with the right expectations for what type of book this was. I was setting them up for some kind of Regency leaning magical romance as opposed to Murder on the Orient Express with Witches. And so when I realized that, I decided I needed to rewrite the beginning of my novel. And I committed really hard to this. I really tore the beginning of the novel apart. And then after I finished that rewrite, I handed it to Jamie and it was completely different. And Jamie read it, and where she'd had a ton of notes on the first one, she came back to me this time with no notes. And she went, this is so different though. What are you going to do with the rest of the book? And I was like, well, I guess it looks like I'm rewriting a bunch of the rest of the book so that it matches this beginning. Not that the book was changing in terms of really major structure beats, but I had changed when a couple of key characters met each other. And that basically meant every time that character came up, I had to change something. So I rewrote this book, and Jamie was just a wonderful cheerleader through all of this. And she was just like, you need to do this. It is so much stronger this way. This is going to be the thing that actually works for you. And it's finally giving the right impression. She was like, this time I'm not getting that vibe at all that I got before. She got the violence instead of the romance, which was apparently what was really important about this book. And so eventually I finished up those revisions. And then I finished them right before December, and basically every agent's inbox was closed during December. So I didn't really get a chance to send it off until after Christmas. And so in the new year, I started sending it off, and query letter was the exact same. But we were right. It was those opening pages, and suddenly the requests started rolling in, which was very exciting. And then suddenly as more requests rolled in, I started sending more queries out because I was like, I think I got something here. And eventually I got a phone call. And I was so excited and I was so nervous. And Jamie was the first person I told. And I just was like, Jamie, I need your help. Because she'd gone through this before. She had an agent as well. And she was so excited for me. And I can remember at the time, I live in Canada. And I live in a fairly small rural area in British Columbia. There's not a lot of other writers up here. And I had been praying that I would specifically get an agent before Storymakers in May, because that's when I saw all my friends and I wanted to party with them. I wanted to be able to be public about it. And I was worried that it wasn't going to happen, but I really wanted it to happen. And sure enough, my offer came in early April. And what that meant is that by the time my waiting period was over, I was actually able to see everyone in May, and I had an agent at the next Storymakers during the course of that year. Jamie wasn't just there for that first call, like she kind of gave me like the pep talk before I did my first agent call. But then a few weeks later, I was kind of spiraling again because I got lucky enough. I actually got 3 offers on that book. And suddenly I had to make choices, and I had to make them really quick. Word to the wise for anybody who's querying, in all likelihood, if you get multiple offers, they will all come at the last minute at the end of your deadline, at the end of your 2 or however many week deadlines. Mine was 3 because I was going away on vacation in the meantime, and the offering agent was very, very sweet and let me have an extra week because she was like, you're going away. I don't want this to be stressful for you. But as it ended up happening, like nobody was going to call me that week anyway that I was away because they all called at the last minute anyway. So as a result, it wasn't until 3 weeks later, and then suddenly I had these 2 other offers and I was having to choose between them. And I was a little frazzled. They had very different editorial visions. They had some different strengths. And so I called Jamie again and I said, Jamie, I need you. And we sat and we just talked it out. And I can remember at the start of that conversation feeling so stressed, and by the end of it, her being like, it sounds to me like you've made your choice. And I was like, actually, I think you're right. And so I ended up signing with an agent that year. Went to Storymakers that year. One of the things that was really fun was, as a result, by the time applications opened for the Storymentors program that year, I was applying as a mentor rather than as a mentee. And so I mentored a couple of wonderful writers the next couple of years who write beautiful stories. And I still have really great friendships with both of them. I have a wonderful friendship with Jamie. We exchange books now periodically to kind of critique each other's writing. And that's just been lovely. And this story has a really exciting happy ending, which is that the agent that I signed with did successfully sell my book. And so this right here is that fantasy murder mystery I've been telling you about. This is Death on the Caldera. It's coming out May 27th of this year from Titan Books, who have just been wonderful, and it's been so much fun. And as you can see, it's Murder on the Orient Express with witches. And it's just been a wonderful thing to be a part of Storymentors ever since then. I've made wonderful friends. I've learned a lot. I feel like I've been able to give back a lot to other people. And I'm really excited for the way that the program has been retooled so that it really is focused on getting you to the next step in your publishing journey. We've kind of added a few things. We've clarified what mentors are going to be doing. And I think that a lot of the things that worked for me about the experience will hopefully be replicable for other people. I think one of the big things is I came in with a completed manuscript. I came in with a book that was ready to be put through the ringer. I came in ready to make big changes. When Jamie gave her feedback, she didn't tell me to rewrite the entire beginning, but what she told me that I needed to rewrite the entire beginning. And that was so, so important for me. I feel like I could have spun my wheels querying with that weaker form of the book for a really long time, except Jamie was there and she made sure that I didn't. And as a result, I had my happy ending. You'll have to read this to find out if the characters do. Thank you so much, Story Mentors. I really hope you apply. I really hope you apply to be a mentor and a mentee. It's a wonderful experience, and I'll see you later.